Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at subtropical storm Melissa, which is actually the nor'easter that was off the coast of New England and parts of the mid-Atlantic, and that's actually turned into a subtropical storm now with peak wind gusts around 70 miles per hour, and that's even reaching onshore a little bit. Then we're also going to be looking at a pattern change or the upcoming pattern later on in the video, so make sure that you stay tuned and watch the entire thing. Now we start off here with the National Weather Service, and we'll start from west to east. So down in California and Southern California, we have red flag warnings, and that's due to some enhanced fire weather danger. And they've actually had some wildfires recently in California, and that's just been due to some warm air and some breezy winds, some very heavy wind gusts, some wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour near in Southern California. Now, as we move a bit more east to our winter storm, we'll start in the Dakotas and Minnesota. In those reds or oranges, you have your blizzard warnings, and that's where you could be under a quarter of a mile of visibility for a few hours, up to 3 or 6 hours, potentially more over some areas. Then in those pinks, you have winter storm warnings, where you could have some excessive snowfall over the next 24 hours, and then a winter weather advisory surrounding the winter storm warnings. And then all this dark blue, anywhere from Wisconsin to central Texas, these are freeze warnings in effect, where temperatures could get into the lower 30s or upper 20s, some areas even into the mid 20s and teens, especially over some higher elevations. And then we have freeze watches in effect for that little area in Kansas, and then we have some flood advisories in effect for parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. And then we also have some coastal flood advisories anywhere from parts of extreme northern North Carolina, actually southern Virginia, and then all the way up until about central New Jersey. And then as you get closer to the shore in New Jersey, all of Delaware, and some of Maryland, you're going to be seeing some coastal flood warnings. And that's just going to be due to some flooded roadways from actually the night before. We haven't been seeing too much rainfall over that area recently, but those roads were actually flooded, especially closer to the coast, because of those 5-foot storm surges, or 2 to 5 feet storm surges that flooded roadways, and that's gonna be caused by this coastal flood warning. Now we're gonna look at subtropical storm Melissa, and we're gonna start off here in the National Hurricane Center. And Melissa is right over here, right off the coast of Long Island and Connecticut. And then also we have two more disturbances that could appear over the next 5 days. A less than 40% chance, I believe it was 10% chance for this system, and then for this system right here, that could be a 20% chance. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly from when I looked at them. And those, not an imminent threat right now, but definitely if they do develop, we'll definitely be talking about it on this channel. Now, we're going to look at the key messages for subtropical storm Melissa. And number 1 says, while the nor'easter centered southeast of New England has become subtropical storm Melissa, the expected magnitude of wind and coastal flood impacts along portions of the U.S. East Coast from the mid-Atlantic states to southeastern New England has not changed. For information on these hazardous sea products issued by local National Weather Service at weather.gov.com. Now, the second key message says, Melissa is expected to gradually weaken and begin moving away from the U.S. East Coast by tonight, resulting in a gradual decrease in wind and coastal flood impacts. Now, here's the cone of uncertainty that's put out by the National Weather Service, and you see it's not too big of a cone, so we are pretty certain that it is going to move off and away, most likely by Saturday morning or Saturday midday. Then also, here's your wind field of subtropical storm Melissa, and this is where you're seeing tropical storm force wind speeds anywhere in these oranges, and that's extending. Here's the center right here, this dot right here, and it's extending all the way almost into southern Boston, and then in through almost all of Rhode Island, parts of eastern Connecticut, and into parts of eastern Long Island. So it's a pretty expansive wind field right here that we have. And since the center is a few hundred miles off the coast, but you're still seeing tropical storm force impacts all the way into Boston, that far north and away from the storm, you're still seeing those impacts. Now, here's the probability and the time of arrival of all these tropical storm force wind speeds. Now, you see, we have a pretty decent chance, above 50% for most of Rhode Island, parts of eastern Connecticut, easternmost Long Island, and then parts of southeastern Massachusetts. You have a pretty good chance, I would say, of seeing tropical storm force wind speeds. But you see, this system is really going to move out of here by today, by tomorrow, tonight, we're actually going to be seeing it almost all the way off the shore, and then by Saturday and Sunday, it's completely off the shore, not really having any land impacts. So nothing really to worry about anymore, but definitely over the next couple of hours over these areas, you could definitely be seeing some impacts from this. Now, I want to just look at the sea surface temperatures right now. So all the way over here, these are all your sea surface temperatures right now. And you see, we actually have your sea surface temperatures right around 60 to 70 degrees, and that's pretty favorable and not too favorable. You usually, if you want to get a hurricane, you need about 80 degrees or above sea surface temperatures, but we only have 60, 70 degrees, so it's definitely going to weaken as it gets into some of these colder waters, into the 50-degree waters as they head a bit northeast. But definitely not too cold of temperatures, not that it won't develop at all, and not that it can't sustain subtropical storm force winds for a couple more hours. Now, we're going to look at your European model, your GFS model, and then your NAM 12km model for your precipitation and your wind gusts. So here, as we keep on going on through Saturday, you can see just some lingering showers. Here's your next front that's really going to push this system off to sea, and it's really going to go off to sea. Really, it's no impacts pretty much by Sunday morning. And here's your rainfall totals from the European model. The European model, the GFS model, and the NEM 12km model, they've all pushed eastward, and they've all pretty weakened the system. Originally, a couple of days ago, just about 3 days ago, we were seeing 6-inch totals over parts of eastern New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, the Hudson Valley. We were also seeing 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts forecasted for these areas. That has moved all east by pretty drastically, and that's been leading to pretty much Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, and eastern Long Island now seeing the brunt of this system. Now, as we look at the GFS model, you see how it's kind of moving off to sea right around the same time period, starting to move off by Saturday midday, and then almost all off to sea by Sunday in the morning. Now, here's your NAM model, and we're going to this is all by 6-hour increments, by the way. So by Saturday morning, it's already moving off the shore, and the NAM 12km really doesn't have too many impacts. You see, there's only a couple of bands of rainfall on the outer side of this system, but then once they move away, you don't really see any more impacts. And then your rainfall totals for the NAM 12km, only about a half an inch over parts of Cape Cod. Not too much rainfall from the NAM, as it has it more south than most of these models. Now, we're going to look at your wind gusts here by the first by the European, and then by the GFS model, and then the NAM, I believe. Now, European model, right now you have wind gusts around 40, 50 miles per hour over some of those islands in Cape Cod. Now, as we keep on going, you see the sustained wind gusts by Saturday morning still in the 30s and 40s for your wind gusts, really tapering off though by Saturday night, still in the 20s and 30s, but then as that front comes through, pushing those winds closer to the east, and as with that pushing the system further to the east. Now your GFS model here, you're going to be seeing same thing, around 30, 40 miles per hour wind gusts for parts of Cape Cod and Nantucket and Boston. All those areas seeing 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts, but then tapers off again by Saturday evening, and it starts to depart by Sunday again. Now your NAM model, higher resolution model, of course, and you see pretty much the same deal. NAM is a bit weaker than all these models on this system, only about 20-30 mile per hour wind gusts for this. Now we're going to look at your upcoming pattern, and we're going to start off with the GFS model, and this is the geopotential heights. And basically what this is, it's the upper layers of the atmosphere, so not precipitation, not temperature anomalies. It's how much if the geopotential heights are negative or positive. And if they're negative, usually with that means low pressure, and then high pressure over those reds and oranges. And so that's gonna so those low pressures will be in those blues. So that's basically your storm systems, and it's really good for picking out those upcoming patterns and more of a long range forecast, because it's not showing you, oh, you're gonna have rainfall on this date or whatever. You're really gonna be seeing where those troughs are coming in, where those ridges are forming, and it's really good for that type of stuff. Now, as we move on, this is your winter storm up there in the northern plains in the Midwest. That's where you see that really deep low pressure system, and as it starts to depart, you have this next wave of moisture over the same areas, and you kind of see that continue. And we're getting into a more of a frontal, more cold fronts coming through the area, more warm fronts coming with that as well. But it's more of every 3 days you get another cold front, or the next 3 days you get another cold front. So really, you're always getting relief, even if you have a couple of warm days in between. And you see how it keeps on more troughs than ridges. Now, your European model, using the same website, Tropical Tidbits, and they have the same they basically have the same idea, and you're still seeing more systems moving throughout the northern plains. What I do want to point out is that it does have a bit of ridging out in the east, so maybe a couple of warm days closer to Tuesday of next week, and then also a bit of ridging out to the west. And the European model is really picking up on ridging. If you remember, the GFS model really it only had those lower values, or those negative heights, but the European model is picking up on some positive heights here. Now, if you did enjoy that video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video. Make sure that you turn on your post notifications. If you click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button, it'll give you an option, all, personalized, or none. Please click all so that you get all my notifications every time I upload a video. That would be greatly appreciated, guys. Anyways, that was Eli the Weather Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.